This Saturday marks 43 years since the EC dollar has been pegged to the US dollar at a rate of 2.7 EC to 1 US dollar. What does this mean for you, the people of the Eastern Caribbean Currency Union? Kareem Martin, economist in the research department, explains when we get back.
The new family of EC polymer notes.
What is different about these notes?
The feel.
Polymer notes are made from a thin plastic film which makes the notes feel smoother than the paper notes.
The orientation.
The notes have a portrait orientation. You will read the notes from top to bottom instead of left to right as you do with the paper notes.
Unique tactile feature.
The front of each note has raised bumps at the top left-hand corner. These bumps form shapes that are familiar to you.
Holographic foil strip.
This feature is on the $20, $50, and $100. When you tilt the notes, the images and colors in this section will change.
New image on the $50.
The back of the $50 bears the image of former governor of the ECCB, the late Honorable Sir K. Dwight Venner.
New signature.
All the notes bear the signature of the current governor, Timothy N.J. Antoine.
EC polymer notes. Cleaner, safer, stronger.
Kareem, welcome to ECCB Connects.
Thank you for having me.
Kareem, the EC has been pegged to the US dollar at a rate of 2.7 to 1 since 6 July 1976, which means this Saturday we'll celebrate 43 years of that peg. Tell us, what exactly is meant by a peg?
Well, it means that when we fixed the rate back in 1976, we decided that this is the value that we wanted to continue with. So our exchange rate is not allowed to float, or it doesn't change in the market generally.
Now, our exchange rate system, the fixed exchange rate system, is one of several that exist. What are some of the others out there, and how do those work?
So they have two broad categories: the fixed exchange rate regime and the floating exchange rate regime. So countries like the United States and the United Kingdom, they have free float systems. So the exchange rates will change during the day, all the time, depending on the demand and the supply for the currency. Countries like the Eastern Caribbean, Barbados, we have fixed exchange rate regimes. So our currency exchange rate doesn't change daily, it's fixed to one rate. So in 1980, where we was 2.7 to 1, 2018, 2019, 2020, onwards, it will be 2.7 to 1.
So what you're referring to is as if when I go into the bank and I see the rate board, the rates, for example, the US, or like you said, the pound, that is what I'm looking at, that floating exchange rate system. Kareem, the fixed exchange system that the ECCB maintains is something that the bank is very proud of, having the stability that it's been this way since 1976. But we know with every system there are upsides and downsides. Let's talk about some of the upsides that come with our exchange rate system.
So there are several upsides to maintaining our fixed exchange rate. There's low inflation, there's credibility, and there's certainty. When you speak about low inflation, that's good for us because it has many macroeconomic benefits. So for instance, household incomes are not eroded when there's fast rises in the price. Secondly, planning is better done when you know for certain what prices are going to be. So governments, households, and firms can better budget and make investments and plan for other financial expenditures. There's also certainty. So importers, exporters, investors, they know the prices that they're going to get. And they know what the exchange rate is going to be because it's 2.7 to 1. This is especially important for our foreign investors, which is one of the larger financial inflows that we get. So they know for sure that when they invest in our countries, the rate is not going to change. So that eliminates some of the uncertainty that they might feel with their investments.
Kareem, what you're saying in essence is that when the people of the region think about the EC dollar, they don't have to worry about the rate and what it would be, and they know for sure the value that they'll get for their money.
Yes, so they have confidence knowing that the prices of certain things wouldn't change because their currency is devalued. So if I want to take a vacation and it's quoted at a certain price, I expect that when I exchange my money to US, it will be the same level as it was prior.
Kareem, we've spoken about the upsides of the fixed exchange rate system. What are some of the downsides?
There's foreign reserves. You have to maintain a high level of foreign reserves to maintain the currency at its level. Some people would argue that this high level of foreign reserves could be used for domestic investment and development. There's also parity. Parity is essentially the rate that we would have fixed our exchange rate. If this becomes overvalued or undervalued, because our exchange rate is fixed, the market is not allowed to adjust that rate. This has direct consequences sometimes, because if you have an overvalued currency, this might essentially make your exports a bit more expensive, which might cause current account imbalances. Current account being essentially the difference between your exports and your imports. If that happens, we might run into high levels of deficits, which we might not be able to finance over time. And finally, there's loss of monetary autonomy. So having our fixed exchange rate system, the central bank has to give up some of its monetary policy independence. And monetary policy being our means and ways of affecting the money supply. This is the currency in circulation and deposits at the banks, etc. Right? So we don't have the tools to impact the money supply as normal central banks would have, because we have dual mandates. We have to maintain our foreign reserves so that we can maintain our fixed exchange rate, but we would also like to affect the economy, which we cannot do because we have to maintain our exchange rate peg.
Given all these possible downsides on the fixed exchange rate system, what does the bank have in place to guard against these disadvantages?
Well, the ECCB agreement essentially guards against these disadvantages maybe materializing. There's strict limits that the central bank must abide by. Maintaining a high level of foreign reserves is one. And that essentially is a buffer against us being impacted by these negative side effects of fixed exchange rates.
So although you mentioned that the high level of foreign reserves that we must maintain, can be used for other purposes, it actually is a protection and a buffer for us in this system.
Yes, it is protection, and it provides confidence to households, firms, investors, and to the government that our exchange rate is secure and strong.
Kareem, it's been 43 years of the EC dollar being pegged to the US. Stability, it's been the same, predictable 2.7. What has this meant for the region?
Two easy words: stability and expectations. We've maintained this peg for over 40 years, 1 US to 2.7 EC dollars. This allows everyone, households especially, to make future plans. You're sending your child to school, tuition fees are this amount now, they're going to be the same amount 6 months from now. Why? Because the currency is stable. You're selling goods or exporting goods overseas. You know what your return is going to be because you know what the value of 1 US is to our currency. The governments are going to borrow money or they're going to make capital expenditures. They are allowed to better plan for this, knowing that the exchange rate is not going to fluctuate. So it has benefited everyone, even the common individual, because it has provided stability and an environment for us to develop our countries and improve the standard of living of all citizens.
So the EC dollar, 43 years and going strong.
Going very strong.
Kareem, thanks for speaking with us today on ECCB Connects.
Thanks for having me, Karina.
To view any episode of ECCB Connects anytime, any place, at your convenience, check us out on YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn at ECCB Connects. And now, this week's financial tip.
Make a plan of how you want to use your money.
That's it for this week's episode of ECCB Connects. Be sure to stay connected with us via Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. And join us next week for another program. Thanks for watching.